participant. It takes a village to make these events, and this one seems to be going off pretty well. So let's jump right in. So as I said, my name is Julie Yak. I have been working in business solutions / dynamics for better than 15 years now. And I've been involved in several different aspects of this world that we live in. I'm an author, trainer, I do mentoring and consulting, and in my free time, I love to travel the world and take photographs. Obviously, we've not been doing a lot of travel these days, but still something I'm very interested in. So our agenda is quite simple. Let's talk about the Power Platform. Let's give you enough background information so that you have a bit of a foundation to explore more and find what interests you. So maybe you're coming here straight from another career path, out of school, you've been off work for a while, you're looking for a new career, or maybe you're already interested in things like Power BI and you want to learn more about the other parts of the platform. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So what is included in the Power Platform and what is a platform? So for me, a platform is a collection of tools, collection of assets, things that are available to me to be able to build full end-to-end solutions. And with the Power Platform, in addition to being able to build end-to-end solutions just using what's in the Power Platform, we have the ability to talk and communicate with other services and other products so that we're not limited by the Power Platform. So the Power Platform contains Power BI for business analytics, Power Apps for application development, Power Automate, which will allow you to do workflow automation, Power Virtual Agents, which is intelligent virtual agents. And then supporting that are additional items. One is Dataverse, which is a relational database, Data Connectors, which is what allows us to communicate with practically any other data source that there could possibly be, and AI Builder, which gives you the chance to get some more additional insights and predictive insights for the data that you're using. So Power BI allows you to make sense of your data quickly and easily, and it's very visually appealing. It's quite basic to get started, but it can be very complex if that's what you need. So we've got the ability to have all of these combined data sources and combined visualizations in a single location. So because we have Power BI available, you're not spending as much time doing the preparing of the data and things of that nature. You're able to spend your time making sure that you're representing your data in a way that's visually appealing to the people who need to consume that data. So what is part of a Power BI dashboard? Let's go through a few of those things. Power BI is connecting to any data. And I say any data, and I'm pretty sure it's any data. I've not yet heard of anyone who's had a stumbling block unable to connect any data source to be consumed within Power BI. Power BI allows you to share your insights with just about anyone. So you can share them with a licensed user in your organization. You can share them in some capacity with unlicensed users in or out of your organization. And you can do things like send PDFs of reports and information like that to anyone in the world. Seamless integration with the rest of the Power Platform and other Microsoft products. Like just about everything on the Power Platform, we've got an extensibility model where you've got no limits. You can continue to build out your Power BI using whatever data you have available. We have the what you see is what you get design experience. As they were building this out, they were targeting the same audience who can be proficient in PowerPoint. And so if you can make a good PowerPoint presentation and you understand the data that you're using, then you are perfectly qualified to be using Power BI to build out dashboards to evaluate and share that data. The data visualizations are constantly evolving. So you can see here on my screen, I've got a few different types of data visualizations. There's hundreds more, and the team keeps releasing more and more of them. So if there's a visualization that you have in your mind's eye that's not available, there's a decent chance it's on the roadmap. And if it's not a roadmap, you can build your own to be integrated with Power BI. This is one of my favorite features of Power BI, and it's been in the product for a long time, is you can use natural language to ask Power BI questions about your data, and it will return those results for you. So you can type in a sentence that says, what were year-over-year sales for my stores in the Southwest region? And Power BI will return those results to you in the form of a report, so that you can use that natural language and not have to worry about, how do I build a query to get this information to me? And in addition to supporting Dataverse and other common databases, we can do that big data as well. It doesn't have to be small data. It doesn't have to be just big data. It can be a mixture of all of those. With Power Apps, you can build web apps, mobile apps with low code and no code development. And this allows business users who best understand the business needs to solve their own problems and to participate in the process. So even if there's a team of people who are out there building the apps, then they can still be consulted and understand the process. In addition to that business user level of building capabilities, we can continue past that into the pro developer world. So a lot of hype has been put around that no code, low code experience, but developers certainly have a home on Power Platform. It's not just for the no code, low code people like me. We have 3 different types of Power Apps, and we'll go into each of them now. The Canvas app is your pixel perfect application that you control 100% of the visual appearance, where you can determine exactly the layout in addition to the data and the functionality, but this is more targeted toward a user experience. And so this will work on Android, this will work on iOS, this will work in all common web browsers. It works on phones, tablets, full-size PCs, and so on. This also allows us to have access to the device. So I can build an application that uses the camera. I can build an application that captures signatures and so on. When it comes to sharing Canvas apps, it really is as easy as click, click, click. It's pushed out then to users nearly immediately. Again, Power Platform is all about integrating the best products together, and this allows you to have direct integration with Power Automate, with other aspects of the Power Platform like Power BI. We can build apps directly in Teams, and we can use this with Office and Dynamics and so on. The extensibility model exists here as well. So in addition to that no code, low code experience for building out apps, there are times where you're going to need to call in a developer to get some more of that advanced functionality. And Canvas apps certainly allow that and make that pretty straightforward to do. Again, that WYSIWYG design experience targeted at that business user. So if you understand what you're trying to build out and you understand how to use basic Microsoft products, including things like PowerPoint, then you are qualified to be building Canvas apps. The data connectivity is the big draw for me. So I can build a Canvas app that can talk to anything from my own connector for 365.training to Zendesk to just about everything in between. We've got the built-in platform using Dataverse. So Dataverse is a relational database. We're going to talk about that here in a few minutes, but that gives you right off the bat an easy data point so that you can have your data and build your apps. And then we've got that logic that comes in here. So as part of that building of an app, you need data, you need screen/user experience, and you need logic. What is this app going to do? And that logic is everything from building out your screen navigation to go forward and backward in your process, to submitting data forms as your users go through and add a new record, to having automation be triggered so that once that record is saved, then these other automation things can happen behind the scenes, and then your user experience is complete. A model-driven app is actually where I got my start, and we've been calling it XRM for a long time, building out these model-driven apps based on the CRM experience from the Dynamics CRM days. And so it's an application where you have a visual representation through a model-driven app of your data. This is where your app is definitely more data-centric, but as you can see here on the screen, it's still a very easy to understand application with some common elements. So when you're building out model-driven apps, you're building your apps around entities/tables and forms, business processes, and so on. You've got that responsive client experience so that regardless of the means in which your users are consuming the application, it's responsive to them. So I'm going to automatically resize and reflow based on the space available. So if that's a phone, it will be pleasant to consume on a phone. If that's tablet, that's a browser, all of those will automatically resize and reflow so that it's optimized for the user experience. Seamless integration, again, with the automation option. So with Power Automate, we can do things like a business process flow that we see here on the screen. We can trigger approval notifications. We can perform heavier data transformations with Power Automate. Pro developers absolutely have a home here in model-driven applications, building out both the user experience and the automation that happens from those users' actions. You can quickly design these forms. So it's a drag and drop visual designer. It is pretty straightforward. You've got several different types of items you can put on these forms, including the steps that you see here on the screen, collapsible sections, many different tabs, and so on. You can easily reuse across multiple applications. So if I have a large collection of related data and then I want to extract out smaller workloads, I can do that and just make a smaller application that's targeted to a certain department or a certain smaller collection of users. We've got the Dataverse is built in. So this is the relational database. This is what we used to call XRM, where it's anything relationship management. So Dataverse has the ability for us to bring in items from the common data model as well as our own custom tables and entities so that we can use that to build out our model-driven application. And you can have this one Dataverse to serve model-driven applications and Canvas applications, and it's the same data that users are interacting with. And then automation. We want to make it easy for the users, right? So we need to build out an intuitive user experience that's pleasant to work with, as well as make the things happen behind the scenes. So we want to have the users be comfortable with the application and to understand that the automation is going to be reliable and happen as they expect. And now we have a portal application. This is a public-facing website based on your Dataverse data. So it's completely customizable so that you can build out your own website this that you're seeing right here is just your starter page. You can completely change this however you'd like to change it. So this gives you the ability to have a public facing site available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you can let people self-service and engage with that data in real time. So you can have publicly available information that anyone can see, your public facing website, and you have the ability to include authentication options to hide some things behind a login to allow users to have some self-service capabilities, for example, to manage their account, put in a change of address, request a support ticket, or so on. The WYSIWYG design experience is back, and here it's even a little bit more helpful. I think that to be able to see that experience as you're building that public-facing website is really important, because we are very concerned with the public image, right? So we want to make sure that we can see how it's feeling, how it's coming out as we're building it. Another thing with the portal applications is it supports automatically the ability to have a multilingual responsive web page that you can easily add more pages and components to. As I said, this starts with Dataverse. So all of the data that comes into the portal is from Dataverse. All of the details on the page come from records that are in Dataverse. You are using some of the assets that you've built in Dataverse so that it's quicker for you to do development. I can use the drag and drop form builder. I can use the views that I've built out all within this portal so that it's reuse of components. It makes a better use of your time. So we've got web roles and permissions available so that portal users only view what they're supposed to view. They can only interact with whatever we've given them permission to interact with. So it's completely secure, so I don't have to worry about someone else seeing my private information. Authentication options include a straight up local authentication where I can create that login information that's directly related to this portal, but I can also use additional authentication providers such as Azure B2C services that would help manage that so I don't have to. And our extensibility model. There are tons of places for extensibility, including things like HTML and CSS. So that's in addition to some of the other automation items we talked about with model-driven apps and Canvas apps, we've got additional professional developer needs within the portals. Now, Power Automate. You may have heard this. This used to be Microsoft Flow, and then it was rebranded as Power Automate, but not just rebranded. There's now a lot more things that are in Power Automate. But Power Automate allows you to monitor your business processes and automate your workflows with all of your apps and services. So you can use all of those moving parts with the Power Platform, as well as those services that you can connect with, and use the best of Power Automate to do the automation that you need. The types of Power Automate flows start with the cloud flows. Here on the left-hand side, we've got automated flows that is based on actions that are happening. And then we've got instant flows and scheduled flows. Again, these are based on triggers and they happen in the cloud. These are what we call the cloud flows, and they're all built in a similar fashion. Then we have business process flows, which we mostly think of with model-driven apps, though they can be independent of that model-driven app, which allows you to have a guided process for your users to follow. And then there are desktop flows, which is robotic process automation that we'll be discussing more here in just a minute. But when we think of flows, we're talking basically about those automated processes, whether they're based on a trigger or a schedule or something of that nature. So the details are any platform support. So this supports the ability to build these heck on your phone, or you can do that here in the browser. You can share the flows just like you share those apps. So it's click, 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 and it really is that simple. You don't have to be an owner of the flow to be a benefactor of the flow. So you can still get the use and the automation as your standard user existing in the Power Platform without having to worry about that. But you can have co-authoring experiences with the flows, seamlessly integrated with Microsoft Platform across the board. Again, extensibility model that we've been talking about. That WYSIWYG design experience where it's pretty straightforward, where you can see your different steps, you can visualize it as you go. Connect to those hundreds of services. Built-in integration with Dataverse, and again, that's the common data model as well as our own custom ones that we're making. And we can build flows with all kinds of logic and automation. It's everything from using AI Builder to monitoring and executing of actions and more. Desktop flows, robotic process automation, RPA. Most organizations are experiencing some kind of digital transformation, and every organization has their own pace. So in some cases, you may want to keep some of your older systems, and so that's okay, because digital transformation is ultimately allowing you as an organization to be as nimble and efficient as you need to be. Sometimes you have to keep those older systems. So with Power Automate's robotic process automation, the desktop flows, we can further empower non-technical users by offering automation for older applications which don't have those APIs. So with desktop flows, you can now apply the efficiencies of automation to some of your older systems. And now we have Power Virtual Agents, chatbots. And as an end user, I have a love-hate relationship with chatbots. I had an experience yesterday with a chatbot from my bank. It's a bank that I use for both personal and business, and I needed to change an address for my business, but the chat agent, the bot, got stuck and wouldn't let me change it from my business. They only wanted me to change it from my personal because that was my primary account. So we need to build intelligent bots that can handle those things, or build that backup so that we can transfer to an agent whenever necessary. So like all things Power Platform, this is extremely available and accessible to business users. You don't have to have advanced knowledge of automation or of artificial intelligence. And so you can build out that bot experience connected to your websites and other data sources so that your end users can be the benefactors of those Power Virtual Agents. So the virtual agent can be available 24/7 for self-help. You can quickly build out that bot, so it's a lot less expensive than some other options. You can meet your audience anywhere, so you can publish these bots several different places. You can publish it on the web, you can publish it to Facebook, and so on. The design interface is pretty darn intuitive. It's pretty straightforward, and when we teach Power Virtual Agent in a class, we've got people building bots in half an hour. So yes, it's a very simple bot, but if you need that more detailed, more depth of knowledge, that's certainly available as well. We've got natural language conversations that happen here. So remember, I talked about that with Power BI. We can take into account the way that people are going to ask questions of our bots to present to them the best possible answer. We can then take action based on the experience that happens in the bot. We can have Power Automate flows be triggered on things that are happening within that bot conversation. We're going to get behind the scenes analytics so that as an administrator, I can best understand where my bots are doing well, where my bots may not be performing very well. Do I have a certain pattern of questions that have to be transferred to a human operator? What kind of things can I do to analyze and make that experience better? And again, we've got insights available to us within things like Dynamics customer service. So a lot of things happening here. So we've got the Power Apps, we have Power BI, we have Power Virtual Agent, and we have Power Automate. Each of these things are strong on their own, but they work better together. We're going to dig now into our Dataverse. We've talked about that a lot, but let's jump into learning a little bit more about Dataverse. So Dataverse is a relational database. So I would assume that everyone has a basic understanding of what is a database. It is pieces of information that we need to capture. So you have a table, say it's a contact. You need information about that contact, first name, last name, email address, perhaps phone numbers, perhaps gender, perhaps birth date, and so on. So that contact database would hold information in fields about that individual, single pieces of information in those fields. But that contact might be related to something. So that contact might be part of an account. That contact might be part of a family. And with that, we have a relational database. Because if I am part of a family, then maybe there's additional members of the family. Maybe there's certain automations that need to be triggered at the family level based on behavior of the contact and so on. So we have a relational database. Dataverse gives us that relational database that we can use, and it's very attainable. And so we've got stored data in standard and custom entities. And you'll hear myself and others go interchangeable with entities and tables. And so tables are the current vocabulary, but the common data model, as well as historically within the Power Platform, we've called them entities. So Dataverse allows you to securely store and manage that data that you're using in your apps. You can build the apps against that data model. You can build your workflows against that data that's stored in Dataverse. You've got business rules. You have form validation, data validation, and role-based security that are all available to you straight out of the box with Microsoft Dataverse. When you want to connect to the additional apps and services, you can do so. We've got built-in connectors that bring you to hundreds of different systems. There are standard ones that you'll see that come out from Microsoft, so that you've got built-in connection to Office products, built-in connections to competing products even. And then you've got the ability to build your own connectors. You can, as an individual organization, build your connector and have it presented by Microsoft as a premium connector. There is a process to go through to vet and confirm that you've got a good working connector as well as good support documentation. And you can build your own as needed. So you can build your own to just use internally. You don't have to publish that for others to use. And then the final piece of the Power Platform that we have not yet discussed is AI Builder. So AI Builder allows you to quickly and easily take advantage of artificial intelligence. So I can build out an object detection model. So for example, I can tag and analyze photos of my pets. I have 3 dogs. I can feed it and let it analyze hundreds of pictures, because who doesn't have all these pictures of their dogs? And then when I use that another photo within my object detection model, it can identify my dogs versus other dogs. It can identify my dog Xena against my dog Charlie, and so on. And I don't need to be able to write code to use that artificial intelligence. Okay, Power Platform. Are you guys overwhelmed yet? We still have a little bit more to go. We're going to talk a little bit more now about the Power Apps more specifically. So we talked about the apps in general. So Canvas apps start with that user experience, that pixel perfect control, and we can mash up data however we need to. So we can make an app that uses data from several different sources. The model-driven app leverages that data model. So we start with data in mind and then build the app using the model-driven user experience. And then portals are those public-facing web pages that allow internal and external folks to benefit from our Dataverse. So we can have that public-facing website, we can have items secured behind a login, and more. So where do I start? How do I know if I need a Canvas app? How do I know if I need a portal? Let's give you a little bit there and see if we can help you decide what it is that you might want to be building. So if we're going to start with Canvas, it uses Dataverse, but it's not data driven. It's user experience driven. So we've got the hundreds of connectors, and you want these to be task focused applications. So I have seen Canvas apps that have many, many, many screens, and that's just fine. And that is absolutely available to us as app makers, but it's not required. You can make simple task focused 1 or 2 screen apps with Canvas apps. You're going to have a visually appealing presentation of that information. You're going to have custom user interface. You've got to build out all of those pieces. And you've got the option for building out in SharePoint or embedding in Teams. And this automatically works with the common devices. So it's automatically going to work on your Android or your iOS device. When you are thinking about model-driven apps, it is absolutely driven by your data model, hence the name, model-driven application. So if you know that you've got a clearly defined data model and you want to quickly get an app, you can build this out. A lot of people say this is back office type application. I disagree. I think that you can build and design these apps in such a way that anyone in your organization can consume a model-driven application. There are certain fundamental experiences we expect from Microsoft apps, and we get that here. And so I don't think that there's a high barrier to entry for users that are using model-driven applications. You've got personalization options for your users. They can control a little bit about how they're seeing things on the screen. They can move things around a little bit to see what's important to them. We've got tooling available, such as integration with Excel Online. We can import, export data records, and so on. We have the starter apps with the Dynamics products, where we can then customize those applications to meet our needs. We have relationship navigation, where we can see those related items, those records. We can go back and forth between them. And back to my example of a contact within a family, I can visualize that relationship and move around within that data to accomplish what I need to accomplish. With the security that we've got in place with model-driven applications, the users are only going to see the data and experience that they're supposed to see with that assigned security role. And model-driven applications give us end-to-end business applications. They can handle the entire business user scenario. Now, portals, we are also Dataverse driven, internal or external user focused. This is a web application. We're going to use some of our tools from our model-driven apps as a framework so that we can reuse those assets within our portal, and we can customize it. So if you're looking here at the screen, this portal page looks nothing like the last example that I showed you. So we've got the standard navigation, we've got a great hero image, we have additional options, and you'll see that this is here in French. So this is being supported in more than one language. So when you're thinking about solving your business problems, your solution architecture can use any or all of these Power Platform options. So what you should look for is common patterns. So you only want to have to administer the data that you have to administer. You don't want to have a bunch of additional data sources. So if you can identify patterns within your data model, then perhaps you're going to build that single dataverse and use that single collection of data to then extract out those workloads, make Canvas apps for those who best use Canvas apps with their user experience, make model apps for those that can be consuming it within the model apps. Those Canvas apps can solve some maybe smaller problems. So if you've got a large collection of users that are using a large model-driven application and a subset of users that really only use 3 or 4 pages of information, maybe you should make them a custom Canvas app that talks to that data so that they have a more pleasant experience, so they're not getting lost in the extra stuff. And you can have a happy combination. You can embed Canvas apps into other places. You can embed a Canvas app into a Power BI dashboard. You can embed a Canvas app into a model-driven app. And we've got some exciting new things coming up that we'll talk about here in just a minute. So the road ahead. And why do you care about the road ahead? Well, you care about the road ahead because it should help you in your planning. Because if there's an item on the roadmap that you could use and it's going to be coming out in the next 3, 4, 5 months, you and your team should not be spending time building that yourself. It also might help you define your own vision with your apps. If you recognize that a new feature is coming up and then it sparks an idea and suddenly your apps are so much better for your users. So let's talk about that road ahead. So we talk about low code, no code, and most of the formulas that we're using in things like Canvas apps and in Power Automate flows, then we've got this Excel-like language that we are using. And it can get fairly complicated. I have seen plenty of formulas that are a couple hundred lines, which to me feels not low code. There's a lot of moving parts, but we've got that PowerFX language that we're calling it that will then be able to be implemented in more places. And we've got some cool items that are coming over the next several months, such as natural language options like we're seeing in other places. And then that authoring experience. It's great that we can make a great experience for our users. Without users, we don't have jobs. So, but when it comes to the authoring experience, how can we make it a better experience for making the applications? So today, we have a Canvas app designer, we have a Canvas app designer for Teams, and we have that model-driven app designer. We are evolving. So we have a new modern app designer for the model-driven apps that is currently in preview. It's quite slick. It gives you great preview of what's happening while you're building it so that you can see what that user experience is going to be. We are reducing the Canvas designer to a single experience so that that Canvas designer will be effectively the same regardless of whether you're building an independent Canvas app or you're building it within Teams. We have the new command bar designer that's working with Power Effects that is in preview as of this week. So the command bar is in the model-driven applications, the bar across the top of the form as well as the app, so that you can, without code, be able to customize that. Previously, you had to work directly with the XML. And also in public preview as of this week is one of my favorite new features, which is the Canvas pages in a model-driven application. So instead of simply embedding a Canvas app, I can right here within this model-driven app authoring experience, build out that custom Canvas page to be included on my model-driven form for my users. I encourage you all to reach out to me with any questions you may have. I would love to answer them on LinkedIn, follow me up on Twitter and ask me those questions, and I would love to be able to help you work on your Power Platform journey. Thanks to everyone for being here today. Thanks to all of our sponsors. I know firsthand how challenging it can be to get one of these events together, and sponsors and organizers really do play a huge role in making these events happen.
Thanks, Julie, for the kind words. Yeah, we have some questions available over our chat, and I'll be asking like one of the questions by Mustafa Hussain, uh, and it's a valid question. Like, do we think and foresee because in a no code low code that anyone can come in and can join in as a no code logic experience? What do you think? How you think that it can be done?
So I think that everyone can quickly have value building with the Power Platform, because when you come into the Power Platform, you came from somewhere. So you may have some experience in a veterinarian's office. So you may not be the person who's going to be building those formulas on day one, but you certainly are the person who can help define business requirements for an app that's going to help in a veterinarian's clinic, for example. And then from there, you're designing screens.
Okay.
And then from designing the screens, you're designing the logic. And sooner or later, you're going to be building out your own data models. And so I think that it's the barrier to entry is quite low, so that anyone can come in and get started and then explore and find their home on Power Platform. Dip their toe in the water, find out a few cool things that they like, and then find their path. Maybe they're a data nerd and they really like Power BI and data models. Maybe they really like the UI aspect of it, and CSS has been their enemy. So they can make Canvas apps without having to worry about CSS.
Exactly. And I think I agree here that you know anyone having some business background, and I've seen in the past that people having no experience of coding are adding a lot of value to the using the power platform. And I think this makes sense that anyone can come in and can start using power platform from a low code perspective.
Absolutely. I have zero interest in writing code. There are people who are good at that. There are people who enjoy that. That's not me.
Okay.
But I have made what I would like to think is a successful career with the Power Platform and not writing code at all.
Exactly. uh, One more question here, like okay, for tablets, and I think this is a basic question that how the Canvas app support compatibility is possible from a perspective of on the multiple interfaces like tablets, mobile, on the on our desktop. How your experience has been around it?
Okay. So when we're building Canvas apps, we are used to having to make a choice. Are we going to build a Canvas app that's targeted to a phone experience or a Canvas app that's targeted toward a tablet experience? So effectively, do we want it to be horizontal or do we want it to be vertical? We've recently seen some functionality come out called containers, and those containers will allow your app to size as necessary for the device that is being used to consume the application. So yes, you can create a Canvas app for a tablet, but that app would also then work on a phone so that you don't have to worry about whether your users are using a tablet or a phone. And so those containers will allow that reflow to happen automatically. And they're fairly straightforward to use. I mean, it's a very intuitive name. It's a container. It holds the things. So your container is going to hold the assets for you, and then that container will resize as necessary.
Okay, that's good. That's a good insight. And I think similar question that you just answered is the the capability of resizing and adjusting it to the as per the respective platforms where we are trying to use that.
Right.
And this
So
question,
if I start and say I'm making a phone app or I'm making a tablet app, no, I cannot change from one to the other after I've made that decision. So if you have an app that was made previously with one or the other, I don't know of any supported way to make that change. If you're starting new apps today forward, use a container so you don't have to worry about that problem.
makes sense. Makes sense. So, thank you, Julie. These are the pretty much all the questions that we had, and it was nice hearing out your session. And thank you for taking out time over, especially over your weekend.
Oh,
Cheers.
sure, no problem. I hope you guys continue to have a great event, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Stay safe.